If you're a nerd for Back 4 Blood, you're going to love today's video, because what we're going to do is we're going to dive really deep into two different cards and see how they square up against each other. Because one of the things I get asked about a lot lately, ever since I released a deck that works for every game video, is about swap speed. So we're going to compare two cards, one of which is Guns Out. And what Guns Out does is it gives you 50% swap speed, but it gives you a penalty of minus 5% damage resistance. And on the other corner, we have Cocky. And what Cocky does is it gives you 75% weapon swap speed, but when you take damage, you lose 20% accuracy for 3 seconds. So we're going to go through each one of these stats on these cards and see how much they actually affect your game, if it actually matters, right? Does an extra 25% swap speed really matter at the end of the day? I don't know. But what I can tell you is I recorded it, and I have it side by side showing you exactly how much of a difference it makes. Now, context here is I'm going to have a Belgian, and I'm going to have a Phoenix. Reason being is that I usually have a secondary and then also a sniper rifle when I'm doing swap speed stuff. And I think that's what a lot of people do with their admin reload builds. And the Belgian is very slow at swapping, and so is the Phoenix. So we're going to see from 0 to 50% and then 0 to 75% how much of a difference it makes. Something to keep in mind is that if you have swap speed attachments on your guns, that's going to make it so there's a bit of a diminishing returns effect on these cards. But if you're going from 0 to whatever this card gives you, you get to see very plainly how much it actually helps. I'm going to swap and shoot as fast as I can, and I'm going to swap back to the other weapon and shoot again, and you'll see how much time elapses over that period. Now, I don't know about you guys, but after rewatching this, I wasn't expecting an extra 25% to really affect things that much. But it turns out that it's enough of a difference that you can see it and hear it without having to modify the video at all. Just in real time, you're seeing the effects of it. So 0.1 for Cocky here. And now let's move on to the damage resistance side of things. Because if you take a look at Guns Out here, you do lose 5% of your damage resistance. So what does that actually quantify itself as? The way I measured it is the way I feel like people tend to take damage most often. And that's from getting hit by a common. And this was really interesting. So I went to Act 4. And the reason I did that was I could guarantee I was going to get a monstrous ridden. And I'm on nightmare mode. And what I noticed is I started with Cocky, because no negative damage resistance. And what happened was per ridden hit, it was about 10 damage. It did eventually reach a point where I took 11 damage. But most of the hits were about 10 damage a smack from a ridden. Okay, so there must be some sort of decimal going on there for me to ever eclipse that 11. But most of the hits were 10. Another thing to notice is that it was taking 2 trauma damage per hit too. Okay, now over to Guns Out. How much is that 5% going to change things? A lot more than I expected. Reason being is if you notice on Cocky, it was that 10 damage per hit. Well, if I moved to Guns Out, I was taking 11 damage per hit. Now, if we talk 5%, that shouldn't be 11, 11, 11, 11. It should be 10 and then 11 and then 10 and then 11, because it should be like 10 and a half, right? Because of 5%. But really, it was presenting itself more as a negative 10% rather than a negative 5%, which kind of stinks. Now, you could argue it's still only 1 damage, not that big of a deal. But it is a nuance that I was not expecting to see when I was comparing these things. And also in the Guns Out case, I wasn't sure if this would change at all, but it did appear that it was mostly just 2 trauma per ridden hit. And just seeing these two things, I think it's going to clarify a lot of things for a lot of people, because I can tell you that if your swap speed is 0.7 and you get this multiplier in there, it might drop down to 0.54 and yada yada, like numbers that don't really mean anything to anyone, right? That who cares? But to actually see these things in practice, I think does matter to people. So that's something I think is really cool about comparing these two cards specifically. But now let's move on to the other part of Cocky that I think is also kind of a mystery, right, for a lot of people. So if you take a look at Cocky, when you take damage, your accuracy is reduced by 20% for 3 seconds. Now, an argument I hear a lot about this is that, well, if I'm ADSing, it doesn't matter anyway because that's 100% accurate. What I'd like to illustrate to you guys right now is that's not true. For the most part. Another nuance I came across as I was testing these things. And a really easy way to illustrate that is I have a scar. And the scar is actually, it was in the patch notes talking about how ADS is not 100% accurate. It was actually officially stated, but I can also just show it to you. So I have this scar. It's an ACOG, and frankly, this is a reasonable distance. This isn't something that's completely out of the ordinary to shoot at. So I have this one area right here at the center of this crate. You see how I have a cross right here, so you can see I'm exactly pinpoint? So I'm gonna shoot right here, and I'm gonna do it a couple times. And what you'll see is it's not always in the same spot. You see how the bullets stray, even though the scope remains in the same spot? And it can stray pretty far sometimes. Imagine if you're trying to hit a ridden head really precisely, and this one hit all the way up here. That could stray off and hit a bird or something that you might have missed in the background, or maybe a snitch or something like that if you're really trying to be accurate. See, right there, you'll see it's not 100% accurate when you're ADSing at all. It definitely moves around. Now, this varies a lot per weapon. The SCAR tends to have not so great accuracy for a AR, but it gets really bad on something like this Tech 9 here. Now, it's a little bit harder to see exactly where I'm shooting with the Tech 9, but you can see it does spread a lot more than what I was shooting at, or aiming at, I should say. And that reason is why we start to get a little bit worried about cocky. Another thing that I think, if you've been playing the game for a long time, might have made you worried about cocky, is if you recall, Run Like Hell used to have a very similar debuff to cocky. It had basically the same exact debuff, where when you take damage, your accuracy is reduced by 20%. Now, if you recall, it wasn't a 20% debuff. It was like a minus 120% debuff to your accuracy. So it was terrible. And I would imagine a lot of people felt that cocky was doing the same thing that Run Like Hell used to do. And frankly, cocky might have used to do that too. Maybe they fixed it. I don't know. But it used to be a lot more than a 20% debuff. However, I went ahead and tested it off stream, but I'm also going to test it in front of you right now so you can see how much cocky is actually affecting things, okay? So I have Carly equipped here because she has a Tech 9, and the Tech 9 is going to be a really interesting talking point regarding this cocky topic. Also, I have cocky equipped and then a bunch of health cards just so that I can withstand the friendly fire I'm about to do to myself. Because the way we're going to make this work is I can buy a Molotov, right? And now I want you to take a look at my reticle when I walk into the fire. This is going to illustrate that cocky is working. There, you see how it goes up? And I can sit here, and then when I stop taking damage, after 3 seconds, it's going to collapse back down. There you go. Cocky's working. And you got to see just how much the reticle expanded on the hipfire side of things. So if you like hip firing, I would not pick cocky in general for the most part. But let's talk about the ADS side of it, right? Because an argument for cocky, and I do agree with this argument, is okay, if your accuracy goes down, but you're aiming at things that are right in your face anyway, who really cares if your accuracy is going down? I agree with that. Where it does get a little bit more interesting, though, is if something hits you, you take it out, and then you're trying to hit things in the distance. Do things still go down with as much efficacy? Are you missing a lot more shots than you should? Or, even more importantly, what if you try sniping? Snipers are all about getting that one hit in. Is that shot gonna stray? That could be a really big deal. So let's just go right here where we have some nice contrast with this white stone. And I'm gonna try to just let the gun go up. I'm not gonna pull down like I usually do when I'm playing to control the recoil. I'm just gonna let it go straight up. And we'll do 2 or 3 of them to see what the Tech 9 does on its own. All right, so Tech 9, not losing any accuracy due to cocky. And that's about what it looks like. Goes straight up, a little bit of variance on the horizontal recoil, but honestly not too bad. And how far am I away? I'm 6 meters away, so I'm really not even that far away. But I do feel like this is usually where people are shooting at max range with the Tech 9 anyway, right? It's about this distance. And we'll do one more time, and this one actually strayed pretty hard to the right, but it did stay fairly tight. It kicked off to the right, but the whole spread of the bullets were relatively close to each other horizontally, right? So let's go ahead and try to hit cocky here and see if things change. So I'm taking damage, and now let's shoot. And you'll see a very different story. So you see how the bullet stayed a little bit tighter here when you were not taking damage from cocky, and you see how much more of a wide spread there was in between each bullet when cocky was in effect. Let's try it one more time just to make sure things aren't weird, right? So we'll do this, and I'm taking damage, and let's do it again. And you'll see it's kind of all over the place. They spread a lot more. I mean, again, plain sight. Just go ahead and take a look at how tight these ones were compared to how wide these ones are. And we'll do it again without anything affecting us. And you see how much tighter it is? Here, I can back up a little bit more. And sure, you'll get your back and forth, but overall, the bullets stay pretty nice and tight to each other. It's really interesting, isn't it? This is stuff that, again, people I'm sure wonder about, but never actually test it. Let me take a little more damage, and then ta-da. Now, this is ADS, right? Should we go ahead and talk about what it's like when you're not ADSing? Let's see what that does to your Tech 9. So we'll try it right here standing still. Now, keep in mind, if you're moving, it's going to get even worse. So standing still, I'll try to have it so that the horizontal lines start right at where the sidewalk and the concrete meet. And holy man, this thing's terrible, isn't it? Frankly, it's so bad, I'm not sure that Cocky's even really gonna be able to be noticed. But let's try it. And then same thing. I mean, look at that. Like, you can't... It is pretty stark, isn't it? Wow. Okay, so this is how much of a spread we had with the hipfire without any Cocky debuff, and this is... I don't even know if you could argue this is a spread. This is just like someone just splattered paint on a wall. This is terrible. Wow. Okay. Now do keep in mind, the Tech 9 is about as bad as it gets. But oh, we have a Belgian here. I'm really curious to see what the Belgian's like. Okay, so something to know about shotguns is if I shoot this Belgian hipfire style, you'll see it's all over the place, right? But if you aim in with a shotgun, you do get a much tighter spread. Not sure if you guys knew that, but it's what? I don't know. I think the number I had once was about a 50% reduction. I don't know if that's actually true, but one of the things that we did test to kind of push us towards that theory is that you can't get 100% accuracy with ADS if you don't already have 100% accuracy through your cards. I had gotten my accuracy up to like 95% via cards, and then I tried ADSing, and I was not getting 100% accuracy out of the shotgun. And it's really easy to tell if you have 100% accuracy because it just looks like a slug. But ADSing is not just a flat buff to your accuracy. It is a percentage based off of what accuracy you already have. So if you have terrible accuracy right now, it's going to look like a much bigger benefit when you ADS. Where if you have really good accuracy, ADSing isn't really going to give you that much more of a benefit. And it's never going to reach 100% just because you're ADSing. A little bit of trivia for you. And now let's go ahead and try this with an AK-47. I think the AK might get more accurate as it levels up. I'm not sure, but either way, let's try with an AK because we should compare a few different things so we get a fair representation. Because if I'm just using the Tech 9, I don't think that's a really accurate way to show off what Cocky's doing, because not all guns are as inaccurate as the Tech 9, right? So we'll try it again with the AK. And again, I think the AK might get more accurate per tier, but let's hit fire with it. It's kind of all over the place. It's kind of all over the place, but now let's do it with Cocky. Same concept, put it right here. Wow. You could almost argue that it was hitting into the other pile of AK-47 stuff over here. Now, these stupid bots keep trying to run in front of me, so it blocked a few of the bullets. But that was really interesting to see that it actually was so much of a huge spread that it almost got into the other pile. Here. Like, look at that. Look at where some of these bullets are going. It's disgusting. All the way up there. And let's go ahead and see what it's like when we ADS with it, because that is what most people are going to be doing, right? Okay, so let's try it over here. Again, I'm going to let it just go ahead and kick up because, frankly, me pulling down, that's going to be such a subjective experience for everyone, especially if you're on a controller. It gets a lot harder to actively pull down where you're shooting to control your recoil. So I'm just going to let it go up on its own and see what it does. So just letting it shoot. It's a pretty accurate gun, isn't it? Not bad. Not bad at all. Now let me go right here, and I'm going to hit Cocky on. I'm going to start at the bottom again. And you'll see it does make things less accurate. Now, how much is this going to matter? That's a real question you have to ask yourself. On the Tech 9, it looks like it matters a lot. On something that's a bit more accurate, not so much so. And to be clear, I don't even have any accuracy improving attachments on this AK. You could add more accuracy to your deck in general. So yes, does it make a difference? Does that difference matter? It probably depends how you play. If you hip fire a lot, yeah, absolutely. Don't use Cocky. If you're almost always ADSing, you might be able to get away with it. Now, one other important point I want to bring up is the topic of sniper rifles, because this was the thing that kept me on the guns out train for a long time. Was what if I go ahead and try sniping and my one bullet does not go exactly where I need it to, because snipers are precision weapons and you need to be pinpoint accurate, right? Now, let's take out the sniper rifle here and get a little bit more distance because it's more realistic for a sniper rifle. And I'm going to try and just always hit the same spot. We'll see if it works, right? So, ba-bam, then ba-bam, then ba-bam, then ba-bam, then ba-bam. And you'll see all the way over here, it was always on the same exact spot. Good. That's good to know. Glad that sniper rifles are accurate. And now let's try it with cocky and see if things change, because this could be a really big deal breaker, right? If you're sniping and suddenly you're not accurate anymore. So let's take a peek. We'll do it right here. Ba-bam, bam, bam, ba-bam, ba-bam, ba-bam. And we're at a distance of 14 meters. It's fair enough. And what you'll see here is it is right in that hole. Let's move these around over here. The accuracy didn't strafe at all. So the takeaway here is ADS seems to affect things differently based off of the type of gun it is. So in the case of the sniper rifle, this actually is a case where it will go to 100% accuracy no matter what if you're ADSing. Cocky is not going to mess up your sniper shot, which is really, really nice to know if you're the type of person that likes to admin reload, swap a lot, and you like to use a sniper rifle. This is one of the things that always kept me away from cocky because I figured bullets would start straying, like they go all over the place, kind of like when you hip fire. But with a sniper rifle, that's not the case. There is one point to keep in mind, though, that you might want to consider, is watch my reticle as I aim in. You see how it closes in slowly? Now, this effect is illustrated by how big your reticle is. So, the bigger your reticle is, the more room you have for error until you're completely zoomed in. Does that make sense? So if I go ahead and I buy one more Molotov here, and you'll see that my reticle gets larger than it was before. Now when I'm aiming in, you see how much more of a space I have to mess up on in case I'm doing something like quick scoping? You really have to rely on being 100% zoomed in. Where, if you don't have cocky affecting you, the area that hip fire is spreading is much smaller, so you're more likely to be able to get a shot off like this before you're 100% zoomed in. See where I'm going with this? This does matter when you're trying to really quickly get a shot off and then switch on over and then really quickly get a shot off. That hip fire radius does matter if you are not 100% zoomed in. Now, one of the things you can do to remedy this is to add aim speed to your deck because it makes this whole process faster. It makes the reticle close in faster. It makes literally your scope go in front of your face faster. Aim speed is a way to try to deal with that if that's something that you're having trouble with. So with all of this in mind, and really experiencing it, really playing with it, testing it out in a practical sense. Like actually, you got to go into a match sometimes and really just see how much these things actually matter. Because doing it in the lab, like, okay, who cares? I mean, we can go ahead and theorize how things are going to be, but what does it actually feel like? The result of me actually playing stuff is I actually moved cocky into my deck because I didn't really feel like I was noticing that much of a difference accuracy-wise. Every once in a while, I will be like, whoa, where did the heck that bullet go? But for the most part, I've been fine with cocky. Having it in the deck, I'm pretty happy with it. I might consider getting rid of 2 as 1 and 1 as none and putting aim speed in the deck. But for now, I moved guns out of my deck and I put cocky in my deck based off of how I play. If you hip fire a lot, don't put it in there. I do like to hip fire from time to time. So I'm still a little meh about it because I like to hip fire with my secondary weapon. Also, again, something to keep in mind is cocky's only affecting you when you're taking damage. It's not a permanent thing. So with all these things in mind, I went ahead and I put cocky in my deck and I've been happy with it. But you guys do what you want. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, which one you're going to go with, what your thoughts were before, what you think about this type of video where we go really deep into the mechanics of the cards. If you want to talk more about the game or ask any questions or learn more about the game, I do stream just about every single night on twitch.tv/SwingPoynt. Link is in the description, also the top comment. Also, if these videos have been helpful to you at all and you want to see more deep dive stuff like this, please consider subscribing down below. And if you want to support the channel just a little bit more, you can go ahead and click the join button down below. It supports the channel directly. It only costs like $1 and makes it so I can keep doing what I'm doing here for a living. So thank you guys. You guys are the best, and I'll see you in the next video that we do around here.